Hi guys, what's going on? Welcome to another video. In this video we're going to be looking at axes. I've been looking forward to doing this one. I think they're quite underrated at the moment. So yeah, I'd like to give my opinion on them and hopefully see a little bit more play through them. But anyway, let's get straight into it. First thing we're going to do, same thing as always, we're going to go straight to the elders and we're going to go over all the passives, the Q, the W skills, and then we'll go through the E's afterwards. So we're going to start with the battle axe, which is the basic axe, and yeah, we'll get straight into it. So the first one is deep cuts. Every 4 normal attacks you inflict a bleeding on the enemy. This deals an additional 55 per second for 1.5 seconds. As I say every time, the 0.5 of a second is a half tick, so it'll actually do roughly around 75 damage, maybe 80 damage. Don't like this. Trying to get 4 auto attacks on someone in a short space of time on the same person on a focused target isn't always the easiest. I just feel like there's better options, but we'll go into them in a second. Life Leech, every normal attack you restore 11 health. This is one of the better options. I think this is just a fairly good one for sustain if you're just hitting people quite quickly. I would prefer Life Leech over Deep Cuts, in fairness. I don't think 80 damage is going to make a much difference when in 4 normal attacks you would have another 44 health. I think the sustain's probably just better. Increased defense, every 5 normal attacks your resistances are increased by 86 for 2 seconds. Trying to get 5 attacks off, even harder than 4, although the reward is a lot better having the resistance buff, but it is only 2 seconds. Most people, if they are playing around axes, probably won't bother, and axes are very rarely the focus target anyway. And lastly, aggressive rush. Every 4 normal attacks all your damage gets increased by 8% for 3 seconds. While it's still the 4 normal attacks, the buff is a lot better and more worth it. I feel like if you played around this, you could actually kick out some major damage in that 3 seconds with like one ability with some of the axes. So I would pretty much be always using aggressive rush or Life Leech. Not enough people focus the axe users to worry about being focused for the increased resistances. So the Life Leech will help with that. Actually, it sounds backwards, but the Life Leech will just keep you up on like the AoEs that are hitting you, as opposed to resistances, which are better when you're being focused. And then you've got Deep Cuts, which is just a little bit of extra damage, but not enough to make a huge difference. So I'm going to start off with the Qs. A rending strike that causes the target to bleed for 17 physical damage every second and reduces their healing gained by 10% for 4 seconds. This stacks up to 3 times. Really strong, amazing for kill targets. So it's 2-second cooldown with a 10-second energy cost. So it is just your spam ability. Obviously it's got quite a short, quite a low energy cost, but actually quite a high cooldown for the fact it's a spam ability. It does really low damage, but the healing gained reduction is really worth it when you're going on a kill target. So this is the one I'd probably use all the time for PvP. And then you've got Heroic Strike, a strong blow which instantly deals 238 physical damage to the target. It's lower energy cost, 7, which is just negligible, and a 2-second cooldown again. So I'd use that for PvE, that for PvP pretty much every time. Heavy Smash. After a short preparation, prepares a heavy attack, damaging the target for 572 and reducing their resistances by 47 for 8 seconds. 33 energy cost and a 15-second cooldown. So you can keep a 50% uptime on that on the resistances. That's quite strong actually. There's no skill shot in this and no way they can dodge it. Basically, if you start the preparation, it's going to hit, does a lot of damage. So actually I like this one. I think it's underused, and I think if you played around the resistance debuff with a Curse Armor Pierce, you could start reducing their resistances very heavily. Imagine like a axe using Heavy Smash, with daggers using their Q, and Curse using Armor Pierce. That's some really, like, you're basically doing true damage to them at that point. We then have Adrenaline Boost, increases your move speed by 40% and damage by 20% for 5 seconds. So this is good on some of the two-handed axes that are big on AoE, which we'll go to in a minute. But I don't like it other than that. So on the Infernal Sight, I would always run that one. It would never run anything differently. Unlike the Carrion Caller, I wouldn't run it. I just don't think it's very worth it, to be honest. Battle Frenzy increases your movement and attack speed by 25% and makes you immune to any movement impairing effect for 4 seconds. Does not make you immune to forced movement effects like knockbacks. So I don't think this gives you enough of a damage buff to be worth worrying about for another team. And in fairness, if you were that worried, you'd wind wall them off, and this doesn't affect it anyway. So it's good, but I don't think this is great. 26 energy cost, which is, it's okay. It's a 15-second cooldown as well for a 4-second buff, so it's really high uptime. Potentially, because it's such a low cooldown, that you could use this and maybe run like the attack speed with the deep cuts, but haven't really seen anyone run it, which kind of suggests to me it's just not as good as it could be. Internal bleeding, swing your weapon around you, dealing 192 damage to all enemies in 5 meter radius. The hits cause internal bleeding, which deals 72 damage per second while an affected enemy is moving. The bleeding lasts for 8 seconds. This is amazing. This is something ridiculous, because people don't know how to not move. Like, you tell someone in PvP, stand still, they're going to go, what? Wait, no, I can't. Everyone is moving in PvP. You get this on the whole team, the damage they're going to take is just ridiculous, and it's on a 15-second cooldown. So again, you can keep a 50% uptime on this. This is the one I would be running in like Hellgate's GVGs, and in fact Zerg vs Zerg, because you could get that on the whole, like a massive amount. And like if a team then stands still, you can put AoEs underneath them, you can put targets underneath them, and you know they're going to be there. So I think this is really strong and underused. Obviously it's quite high to get it, but if you do get it, I think this is one to give a go, really. Then we have the Battle Axe only at E. Vampiric Strike deals 447 physical damage to an enemy. If the enemy has Rending Strike on him, you will also get healed. One charge heals 120, 2 charges 100, 1 charge heals 120, 2 charges 180, 3 charges 254. 59 energy cost and a 15-second cooldown. So it's really strong, great for solo PvE. Sorry, I'm getting text here, that's really unprofessional. Great for solo PvE. Trash for PvP, really, unless you're being ganked by like a melee person. Like, I had a quarterstaff gank me when I was running the build that I have on my YouTube channel of battle axes, and he got slaughtered, but because he just couldn't kill me. However, in like Hellgates, I would never run a one-handed battle axe. It doesn't do enough basically to carry. Anyway, let's move on to the next weapons. The next one is Halberd. So the only thing that changes is the E. Deals 306 damage to an enemy and enemies around the area around that. Sorry, let's start again. Deals 306 damage to an enemy and any enemies in the area around them. That's a tongue twister. And causes the affected target to bleed for 28 damage per second for 5 seconds. If the bleeding effect of your Rending Strike is active on the main target, every target affected by the AoE will also have their incoming heals reduced by 23% for 10 seconds. Additionally, the Rending Strike will spread to all targets in range. So if you get this on a couple of people, you get the 30% from that and the 23% from that to have 53% reduced heals on every target that gets hit. The problem is it's a very small radius around them, so they have to be basically stacked for this to work. If you can get it on 2 or 3 people, hats off to you, it's an amazing weapon. Until they change it to have a wider range, I just don't think this is very good at the moment. It has its place maybe in Zerg v Zerg, but GVGs and Hellgates, you just spread out as soon as you see a Halberd. We then have the Hand of Core, which is actually the Great Axe. Some of the tier 8 weapons actually have fancy names. Whirlwind. You spin around like a whirlwind, increasing your move speed and dealing damage to all enemies. So it does a low amount of damage, but it does lots and lots of hits. You also increase your move speed, so if you're trying to run away from someone or run to someone, you can actually pop this as an engage. It's not bad with Mercenary Jacket for sustain. I don't think I've ever seen someone use it in... that's a lie, actually. I saw someone use it with Stalker's Jacket in a Hellgate. They did a lot of AoE damage, but you're not CC immune, so you just get knocked back or CC'd out the way, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's also a very, very high energy cost with it's a low cooldown, but you'll burn your energy really quickly using this. Potential use, but I think there are other options that are better. Claret Blade. Right, let's move on to the Carrying Crawler, the tier 1 artifact for axes. Morgana Raven sends a transcendent raven in a straight line, dealing 422 physical damage to all enemies hit. Additionally, it causes the targets to bleed for 72 damage per second for 5 seconds. Over the duration of the bleed, the target's received healing is reduced by 35%. So this is a 15 meter attack, 67 energy cost, which is really high. Low cooldown, high energy cost, so you're going to burn your energy quick. However, you can stack that up to 3 times, so 30%. You can then put that on them, 65% healing reduction. Imagine that on a team, on a kill target as well. Like, carrying callers are used a lot at the moment, and for good reason. They are ridiculously strong. You really can just reduce the healing that someone takes by so much that they just can't heal through it. I don't see this going away anytime soon. I think it is just way too strong. Potentially, it's in a good place, maybe a little bit too much. So I'd be happy if this overwrote the 30% from this, and this was maybe like a 50% instead of 65. I think 65% is just too much healing reduced. But other than that, this is a good weapon, lots of damage, quite a hard skill shot to hit. It is a skill shot, but yeah. And then finally, the Infernal Sight. Bloody Reap. A mighty attack with your scythe that deals 322 damage twice to enemies around you. The first hit causes the enemies to bleed for 72 damage per second for 5 seconds. This does... Let's work it out. So 72 times 5 is 360. Plus 322 twice, which is 644. Yeah, you're doing like 1400 damage, 1300 damage when you start buffing it with adrenaline boost. This is why I would use adrenaline boost. Pop adrenaline boost, run into the middle of them, bloody reap. You'd cleave their whole team, doing a ridiculous amount of damage. This is a great weapon for Hellgates GVGs because you can always hit this on 2 or 3 people. It's a really big radius, but again, it's a high energy cost, so you can only use it 2 or 3 times, maybe in a fight if you're conservative. And it is also a hell artifact, so it's difficult to maintain and sustain it. But other than that, guys, these are the axes today. I think they're in a good spot. They do probably a little bit too little damage, but they have high utility in the bleeds and the healing reduction. Definitely in the meta spot, they are definitely viable to be running. I would always be running either Stalker Jacket or Mercenary Jacket. Mercenary sounds weird, but you run Mercenary Jacket with one of these, you're going to be healing so much off the bleeds on cooldown as well. I saw someone run Mercenary Jacket with a healing pot in every Hellgate, and he was just like immortal. Genuinely, he did so much damage with he was actually running Scythe. He did so much damage, and he was healing so much that a team couldn't put him down quick enough. But yeah, other than that, guys, I've got a couple of video ideas for the next couple of days. I'm going to do a tanking one, just a guide how to tank. I'm also going to be doing a shot calling one. A lot of people have asked what I'm doing for shot calling, how I'm deciding targets, what I look for. I'm going to be doing a video into that as well, and obviously we'll continue with the meta guide usage. I want to go through every single weapon, every single skill, armor, everything. We'll look at what the next one is. It is spears, which is interesting. I'm looking forward to doing spears because they're in a weird space at the moment as well. Other than that, guys, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out the Twitch. I'm not streaming tomorrow, however I am streaming on Tuesday. Other than that, guys, have a good day. Good night.